Hey, get in here.
Hey, you!
No, get in our room.
Yeah, you, come here.
Come in.
Come on, get in our room.
Welcome to this week's episode. That's Kristen.
And she's Bobby.
And we're starting off as normal with general chaos. All the things that we're doing. Yeah. Okay, Kristen.
Wait, I gotta check to make sure all my alarms are off.
Yep, let's do that first.
I
Hope everyone's having a great weekend thus far. That's going to be over here.
know, that was a short weekend.
Oh my god.
But when you spend all of Saturday sleeping, it really shortens the weekend.
Jealous. I did not do that yesterday.
Oh.
Okay.
Right. I'm all good.
All good. Cool. So, tell me about what you read this week.
Oh man, this week I read It's Just a Duet, 2 books. It's not really a series, right?
Yeah, it's
Of Haunting Adeline. And let me just tell you, this shit was so demented. The first book was kind of cute, right? She's got a stalker, and then he ends up being really handsome, of course. And it was like kind of cute because he's into just, like scaring her, and she's into being scared. So that was just like, a little weird, but cute. And then the second book completely went off the rails, and I kept wanting to like throw up. But then I had to figure out how it ended, and now I still want to throw up.
Oh wow.
So
That is a turn.
So his name is Zaid, and he hunts down and kills human traffickers. So he's like a good guy, but then he wanted her to fall in love with him, but he's like, I could have just taken her on a date and she would have fallen in love with me because I'm a great guy and I'm hilarious and I know how to like fake being nice. But he wanted her to fall in love with all the bad parts of him first. So that's why he stalked her. And he's got like a scar that like goes all the way across his face through his eye. And he's got one blue eye that is so light blue, it's like crystal white. And then the other eye is dark.
Hello.
Yeah.
Mismatch eye thing. I saw some fan art of like Elaine and Lucian if they had a child. And one eye was bright blue and one eye was like golden amber fiery color. Adorable. Well, yeah, I am so.
My hairstylist has one brown eye and the other eye, the top half is brown and the bottom half is light blue.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It is hypnotizing. It's amazing.
My eyes are just green. But as Kristen found out this week, they're really, really pretty when I cry.
In fairness, it was because she was crying laughing.
Because I almost choked to death because Kristen almost killed me.
Oh yeah, when I updated you that I can't drink out of a straw.
Yeah, and then I was attempting to take a drink out of a water bottle, and I was driving stopped at a red light, and then I proceeded to choke and spit all the water out the window, and then I was like coughing, choking, crying, laughing, and I look over at her in a fit of giggles, taking my glasses off, wiping my eyes, and she goes, "Oh, your eyes are really pretty when you're crying." I have been told that, and thank you for noticing, but now is not the time. I cannot get oxygen into my lungs. So that happened.
So now that I'm broken and can't read anymore, what'd you read this week?
Okay, so I finished that Attempting Life by C.J. Archer. It's the second book of a trilogy. And it was not as good as the first one. It really slowed down around like 3/4 of the way through. And it was... Hi. Following. And But I do think that like the male main character in it ended up coming back and like fixing the problem in a way that I didn't expect him to. So that was kind of cool. So it kind of like after it slowed down for a minute, I was on. It like came together really nicely at the end. So like I would probably give that, I don't know, I'm like 3.75 stars. It's probably my least favorite CJ Archer book. There is a third one, and normally you can predict the next character that she's going to talk about, but the focus has mainly been about two brothers for the first two books, and I don't know who the next male character will be, or if they're going to pivot and it's going to be a female. And so I'm interested in reading that one for sure. Just to see who the heck that is, who the heck's it about, right? And then the next book I read is really embarrassing in a way.
Uh-oh.
Because I was looking for a short book, like short word count, and just to like read, because I have not finished A Kingdom of Venom and Vows. I'm 54% of the way through. I thought I was going to read it on the flight, but I ended up sitting next to an older gentleman, who was like from the same area as me, and like literally like grew right down the grandpa's. Anyways, turns out him and I had a lot in common, and so we were talking about stuff, and and I didn't read at all. And I'm glad I didn't, because like the scene that I tried to read for like 2 seconds, and I opened up my phone to look at it, and it's like, oh, I forgot I left off a spicy scene. Let me just close it back down, because I was like, he's for sure gonna read over my shoulder. No, thank you. So I just didn't read. But
I just assume everybody else has really bad vision and they can't see the print. If you look at how big the font is on like older people's phones, you don't have anything to worry about in public.
I mean, he was a very young 60-year-old.
Oh.
I never would have guessed he was 60, like in really good health, or athlon, and
oh wow.
Yeah, so I didn't trust they were too good. And just call it no. He did say he had prescriptions, but I didn't trust it. But I ended up last night just picking up and opening a book. And the name was Take My Daddy, I'll Take Yours. And I'm yep. And so it was like a 2-hour read. The reason I ended up being like, oh, I'll read this book was because what's his name?
The guy on the cover?
Yeah. Wander Gray Wolf on Instagram. He's a photographer, and he's a model, specifically a photographer for covers of romance. So he takes really nice photos, but he himself is a quite dashing silver fox. And so I was like, oh, I know who that is. I'll read the book. Yeah, well, it was basically a 2-hour-long short form, very few chapters for actual.
And then what did you do when you finished? What'd you do when you finished that book?
Nothing for a minute. I just kind of sat and and like existed for a second, and like was like, oh, okay. And then I went and sat out by a fire.
And then you recommended it to me.
Oh yeah, I did that too. I took a photo and was like, here you go.
That's my favorite thing about spicy books, is that then you're like, oh, I know exactly who would like this, and you always send it to somebody, right?
Yeah.
Do you think guys do that after they're done watching their spicy content? I don't know if we're allowed to say the P word.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm going to refrain from. I don't know. I think it would be interesting question to ask, but I don't want to at the same time. Some of them have to, right? Like some of them are weird enough to do that. Why do I not think it's
highly-
weird to share a book like that though? But I think it is to share a video.
Right? You would never, like, I highly doubt there's a single guy out there that's like, hey man, watch this video. I thought it was great. And then we'll discuss it afterwards in detail.
And maybe that's their problem. Because they don't know what people like think is good. Maybe men are much darker than women. Never mind. I don't know.
Maybe it is their problem. Anyways,
Because I
think
feel
we
like they
just got our
don't
clip for
discuss it.
TikTok.
I think they I don't think they discuss things as openly as females. And I actually do think that's a problem.
I know, but
Because
is it
when they
weird that
do-
we discuss this.
No, because when they do discuss it, it's like in a very like I don't think my word here. In a very misogynistic way. They're like, oh yeah, I did. They're just like upping themselves and hyping them look good, where there's no context about, oh, this would be consent and passion and sides of question. None of that. Anyways.
Well, that went off the rails quickly.
It did.
Maybe we can make our way back to the train car.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, and I'm just gonna try and finish the Kingdom of Venom and Vows this.
What's that one about?
It's about a vampire and a fae kingdom that are like enemies. There's this one. I forget what she is, but she's basically got like all special power. She has like these shiny scars on her body that show it's like star blessed or something. I don't know if they call it basically star. And she's like, apparently she's a key to some prophecy, and so you're trying to like, you're just following along with the story. This is the third book, and it's good, I like it, but at the same time, I'm kind of over, I don't know where I'm at with my fantasy. Kind of like trained them. Because they're pretty predictable right now for me. I think everyone's been trying to emulate
Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, and that fandom so much. And that's originally why I liked this one, because it was different. It was fae and vampires and enemies to lovers, and it's a unique world, and I really like that. But I don't know, I just kind of overwhelmed by the fantasy thing right now, because so I feel like everyone's trying to one each other, and
then it just gets less believable.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
The plot twist, like everybody dies, and then they're like, "Oh, surprise! The clouds rained special water, and everybody came back to life." You're like, and I think the other thing is that there's just not high enough stakes. I think some of them have, like what was the last one I read? Silver Flame. Actually, throughout the entire series, right? None of the main characters, they do die, but not really.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And it's just not high enough stakes if fairies people are dying. Like, if your main characters aren't getting killed off, there's not high enough stakes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sucks, like, obviously,
Yeah, so I have a long drive this week, so I ended up downloading some audiobooks this morning for drive tomorrow. And I actually was trying to pick something a little bit different. So I ended up downloading Through the Hoopla app. I did 101 essays that will change the way you think. That was actually recommended to me by my best friend Paige. And then I also did The Tobacco Wives, and it's about a seamstress who goes to work for the wives of this tobacco company, and something nefarious happens and she's kind of like somehow caught in the middle. I'm really interested in that one. I also booked is a collection of rom-com novellas for book lovers. And you know me and my rom-com lately. Like I've kind of pivoted from like fantasy to like rom-coms lately. Just because I need something super refreshing right now because I'm feeling just like generally very overwhelmed in life, and I think that's part of why I'm pulling from the fantasy, because they make me feel because like I don't think people understand my type of personality where I just get micro fixated and just way too far into stuff.
Yeah.
Kristen, I know you know because you were constantly telling me
this was a rough week.
constantly telling me about the things that I do, and I'm like, oh, do something new. And then I downloaded a short audiobook. Another short book. Your Dad Will Do. Yep. I don't know what's wrong with me lately. Don't ask questions because I have no answers.
Girl, I pivoted out of fantasy straight into like dark romance.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Mindfuck series is dark romance.
Yes, definitely.
Revenge.
No. I mean, it's probably dark romance.
And then I left the safety pedestal of being on the edge and plunged headfirst into it with Haunting Adeline, and I just need some time in the real world.
So, are you taking a break this week from reading?
Yes, I am going to try and get... So far I've read 25 books this year, and I've written 0 reviews of any of those books, so I gotta spend some time, processing my emotions on said books.
Yeah.
And hopefully writing those reviews out will clarify how I'm like, all right, I'm moving on from that.
Yeah.
Like writing it down, getting it out of my brain, moving on. Because right now I'm just like, I don't want to say a shell of a person, but
I get it.
I don't even think I can recommend Haunting Adeline to anybody because it gets so dark.
Well, when you were in the middle of the first book this week, you're like,
I know, I shouldn't have said that.
Too soon. I spoke too soon.
I don't know if there's a way to be like, you should read the first one, and even though it ends in a cliffhanger, try to not read the second one.
Yeah, that's not who I am as a person. It's not high on my TBR list. I actually went through yesterday after I got done reading and through and was like, okay, trying to organize my thoughts about what I wanted to read next. So I have actually some that I am going to focus on that have been on my list forever. And another thing is I think I might try to pivot a little bit away from reading ebooks and listening to some audiobooks, because when I was on Hoopla yesterday, I realized a lot of things on my TBR list were on Hoopla on audiobook. And there's been a lot of things that I've wanted to get done, but I'm like, well, I also want to be reading. So at least I can put my headphones in and listen while I do some other tasks, because it's spring here and there's a lot of like yard work and stuff that I want to. This weekend was too cold. It ended up being like 5. Didn't do besides burn some stuff that we cut down this fall, but I think I'm going to pivot a little bit to audiobook on this little funk that I'm feeling. Like I said, I'm just generally low. I think that will help me feel productive, but also stay on task. But the amount of books I want to.
So not this week, but next week, I have a 7-hour drive one way, but I have to do it with a coworker. I'm just trying to decide what audiobook I'm going to listen to for 7 hours.
You could
Just
do
kidding.
that. It's only 4 hours, but you could do that Wise as Fuck or one of his other ones because they're pretty short. I also downloaded
That's-
one of his other ones, and it's only like a 3-hour thing. But yeah, so this week sucked. It was really overwhelming.
Yes, it was. Oh my god.
It was just because we travel for work, we had a big work event going on, and it was just a lot of on time. Because you have dinners and team building things that you have to do. It's just like being on all the time. And then I'm really lucky to have two of my best friends as coworkers. So then when we want to turn off, it's like after dinner. And so we want to go get a nightcap and just decompress and just talk about life because we've gone in our lives. But then you want to hang out with your friends, and then no, it's midnight and you're like, shit, I should go to bed.
But then, because we travel and all of our coworkers travel, it's the minute you step out of your hotel room, you have to be on. Like, there's no drive time. There's no private breakfast. There's no like, I just need coffee for a second. Like,
it's not that.
I'd rather travel alone.
Same. Yep.
Where there's no on time.
And then you're with your managers too, so there's, cold, and it just can be really exhausting. So, that is why you may see we're still recovering. And I think it's really cool that you napped yesterday. I didn't. I slept in a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, it was exhausting. I didn't do anything yesterday. I didn't do anything at all.
I went to, it was record store yesterday. Record store day. And so I spoke about him and his wife before, Paul and Amanda Pretzer. They own favorite records area. The record store day is when there's big releases and like different record stores get they like order or request certain amount of these releases, and then they get them in and they put them on the shelves. He had a huge line out the door. I'm just really proud of his thing. But it's great because the community in the Muskegon area, like if you go and you buy a record and you keep your receipt, you can get discounts at other local vendors. Like there was a place called Hamburger Mikey's 3 doors down that you can go and you can get like, I think it was like, it's anywhere between like 10 and 20% off your bill there. And then if you take their receipt and you go somewhere else, you can just go and have this really cool day of like going and supporting small businesses in your community, because they're all kind of like intertwined, helping each other out. And what we ended up doing is we weren't really hungry for Hamburger Mikey's, and we had them on our Saturday date. A lot of Saturdays going. We normally go to.
That's cute.
Yeah, we normally go to Third Coast Final, Mikey's, or the Only Cannoli. But we went to. They were doing a thing with 10% off your order from the Coffee Factory, and I hadn't heard of this place, and I love coffee, and I was like, okay, let's get some coffee and a snack. And when I tell you, walked into this place, I was completely like, you walk in, right in front of you, there's like this small hallway with, I can't remember the name of Funky Duds or something like that, but it's like a small hallway with like vintage clothes in it that you can buy. And then there's books everywhere around this coffee shop for sale. And then they
Oh,
have like this yeah, and then they have this
Is it new?
I don't know how new it is. I have no idea. But they have books and have like a community board. They have really cool seating. Oh my gosh, I was like, I am now in love with this place. And it's in an old part of an old furniture factory. And they make a lot of desserts that are like gluten-free and vegan, or just stuff in general, because they have some like salads and treats and muffins and stuff, and gluten-free. And oh my gosh, I was like, this is the best thing ever. So like, had I not gone and supported one local business, I never would have found out about this other local business that I am now extremely excited to know about. And it's on a Thursday, which is a bit of a bummer because I might be out of town, but they're doing a Mix It Up event, and it's a dry bar experience. So they're going to be doing like non-alcoholic cocktails and stuff. And I'm just really excited because I'm like, I could go and holy, that's great. That sounds exactly like I want on a Thursday night if I'm in town. So I will be there if I can.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And today is World Book Day.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, I don't plan to read like at all today. It's
because I don't plan to read for the next week.
Yeah. And because I have to pack and I have to unpack to pack because that's how lazy I've been. I just like threw my stuff. It's all behind me. I'm sitting in front of it. So, yeah, I'm
pretty sure my suitcase is still in the car.
I believe that. So, yeah, I'm probably not reading today.
Yeah. That's all right. Every other day is World Book Day for us. See, I got hung up on the Amazon Kindle metrics thingies, the little achievements you can get when you read and so I'm like, damn, maybe I'll just open it every day and read a page. Just so I can keep those metrics going. Yeah, not because
your read streak stays.
Yeah.
I know. I get that 100%. I'm a numbers person, so that always is cool and fun to me. So,
you know, obsessed with all the wrong things, but that's okay. Me, not you.
But also me.
Obsessed with like, how many days can I read in a row? And you're like, is that all you have going on? Or should you maybe do something different today? No.
All right, Chris, about these questions.
Oh my god, I thought this was so fun. There's this girl on Instagram. Her handle is @_reads. And she posted like late last night, and I stole all 3 of these questions verbatim right out of her post. So thank you, @_reads, for the fun that we're going to have this morning. Okay. If you had to marry the love interest in the last book you read, who would it be? Go ahead, Bobby.
So mine would be Evren, who is the prince of the vampire kingdom in A Kingdom of Venom and Vows, because I did pick that up and read chapters last night after I finished that other book. So it would be Evren, which I would be pleased about.
Mine would be Zaid, who is the stalker from Hunting Adeline. And we've had this conversation a couple of times. I don't know if it's made it to being posted. I can't remember where we've had this conversation. If it's in some of our files that we're editing before we post. But we've talked about like the difference between sexual harassment and flirting is how attractive the person is. And that's kind of where Zaid is in this story, about like, yeah, he's the stalker and kind of like the bad guy, but he's so attractive. Is it stalking? So I wouldn't be upset about that. Maybe. I don't. Ah, God. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. This book, like, just to circle back to it, it is just going to destroy your moral compass over and over again. Okay, next question from Ash_reads. I just want to make sure that I get her some attention because she's got a really fun Instagram page. If you had to kill the side character in the last book you gave 5 stars to, who would it be? And how would you feel about it?
The last book that I gave 5 stars is the Iced Out. And it would probably be, if it was a side character, I like literally couldn't think of any side characters. Oh, actually, I just did. There's a side character in this book who is like the root of all the problems, but if I killed him, the book wouldn't make any sense. Is that what the question was? Yeah. If I killed him, the book wouldn't make any sense because the problem would have never happened. Like the issue would have never happened. I had written down because there was like an incident with like drugs in this book and some debauchery around it, and one of the characters was a captain, and his urine came back dirty, but the problem was that it wasn't his urine, someone switched stuff. So that's like what the friend that I was talking about I would kill, but if that never happened, the book would never have a premise. But there was like this board at the university that like had to like review his case and like talk to him about the situation and stuff, and they stripped him of his like because he was a captain, they stripped him of being captain, and I would probably just
of his tea.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I'm glad you knew where my brain was at. I just think of like taking the scene, ripping it off the jersey, very dramatic like that.
I like a slower dramatic where they make him sit down and watch them use the Stitch Ripper.
Yeah. It's
like, God damn it, it's gonna take forever.
So, I originally said one of them because they were dickish. I don't know. Dicks.
The last story book series I gave 5 stars to was the Mindfuck series. And all the side characters in that are rapists.
Oh.
And they get killed anyways by the end of it. Oh, shit.
Spoiler. Kristen. Yep. So. Shocking.
I am so bad at this game.
You are.
All right, let's see if I can not fuck this one up. Okay, if you had to swap bodies with the villain in the first book you read this year, who would it be?
Oh, so the first, I'm going to switch to search really. It would be Asher, a vampire.
Is that Pedro Pascal?
Yeah, that is Pedro Pascal. But I'm speaking about the gentleman behind him.
Quick side note, I just read a little meme today, and she said, I know why all the girls call each other sis. And then she brought up a picture of Pedro, and she said it's because everybody's calling the same guy daddy.
That's hilarious. But, yeah, so this would be Asher. He's an ancient vampire of an nondescript age. Yeah. What was the question? Oh, yeah, if I had to switch bodies with him, I would just stare at myself.
I thought vampires couldn't see themselves in mirror.
I mean, he can be killed with a sword, so know if it's the same.
God, wouldn't that be so disappointing to finally be so gorgeous and then all of a sudden you're like, I can't even look in the mirror.
You would see my reflection. Yeah, that would be my I just lay down and stare at myself. Poke.
Bobby spends all of her fortune amassed over a millennium getting people to paint her.
Yeah, that'd be cool though. I don't know why we stopped doing that, like portraits, like family portraits like that. I mean, I guess photography
I
is
think
out, but like
it's because of the Pink song family portrait. That's why people stopped doing it.
can you explain? Because I have no idea what.
Oh, Pink, the singer. She has a song called Family Portrait, and it's about how fake people look in their family portraits.
Oh.
Anyways, that was a joke for 2005.
Guess so. My bad. I thought there was a family name with a family name Pink. Had a family portrait and then died. See, this is why I read books, but because this is how my
I know,
mind
but you
works.
listen to a lot of music, so I thought
I do.
I thought you would just be on board on a Sunday morning for a random reference for 2000.
Yeah, I wasn't ever like the biggest Pink fan. Like I like some of her songs, but I wasn't like crazy.
I listen to the same like 5 songs on repeat till my ears bleed, and then I don't listen to music for a long time. You open my Spotify and you're like, do you listen to music?
Yeah, I was so confused. I was like, there's no music on.
I actually don't listen to music on those streaming. I only listen to it on YouTube or the radio.
Yeah. I have YouTube.
The old-fashioned radio in your car where you get to like switch between stations.
Yes. If you had a swap, what's your answer to that question?
It would be The King of Highburn. I read what is that really long one? The purple one? Wings of Fury and Mist. Misty Fury Wings.
The purple one is A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Wings and Ruin. I have no idea. I just read them.
War and Ruin?
The downside with reading Kindle is that every time I pick it up, I don't see the cover.
You can change that.
Yeah, but like when a book's just lying around and you look at it, it's just never gonna. So I'll never remember the name of the book.
I turned mine off on the cover. I was like, well, off. I mean, it's great. Look at.
Not in public. Not in an airplane when everybody's leaning over your shoulder, looking at what you read. But that's why I just... Hey man, if you lean over to read what I'm reading, you're bad. Because you're going to get traumatized.
Because I am. We're all in this together.
I don't take trigger warnings very seriously. And when people allude to stuff, I'm like, oh, what? I gotta know. And then I'm like, shit.
Now I know.
But I started Haunting Adeline, and I couldn't remember if there's this really terrible scene. And I was like reading it, and every time I turned the page, I was like, I hope that's not it. And then finally I Googled the scene, and it's in a completely different book.
That's good.
So I will not be reading that book.
Yeah. So our main topic for today, which I don't even think we mentioned, because
surprise,
we're all messed up.
We didn't post about it. We didn't do anything. This is a surprise topic, mostly because we forgot.
Oh, we mentioned it last week, so it's okay. We're here now. So this is Good Movie or Movies to Books, where we read the book and watch. And we discuss the things that we appreciated or didn't appreciate about any changes that were made. And the book this week, or in movie, topic is Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yeah, a very, very popular book.
Yeah, and I listened to this probably 3 weeks ago. And I really enjoyed the book. It got a little slow for a second there, and I was like, okay, what's going to happen? How does this end? But it is very good overall.
And very different from anything else we read on a daily basis.
Yeah. I struggled a little bit at the beginning because I couldn't tell if she, like, what ethnicity she was. I couldn't tell at all. And then
I never figured it out until the movie came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, they fucked it up. And then I was like, oh, wait.
I fucked it up. No, it turns out I figured it out when Jumpin' was introduced. And
did you hear that?
I did. I heard your dog. That was really loud. So forewarning, there is definite spoilers involved in this conversation because we cannot.
Because I'll be talking.
Because Kristen will be talking, but we also cannot not have spoilers for some of the situations in this category. So, all right, how do we want to start this? Because I know there's some tea around the author. Yeah.
Yes, so this is super interesting because every time I bring up the book Where the Crawdads Sings, somebody always says, oh, the author's wanted for murder because it's a true story. And I'm like, no, that's not the story. Like, it's not a true story based on the author's life. And I don't know how people got hung up on this detail. They're like, yeah, the author is wanted for murder because she wrote a true story and they connected it. Anyways, that's not true. In 1985, I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. Delia?
Yeah.
Delia? And her husband moved to Zambia because they wanted to get more hands-on and more involved in saving elephants. And so in Africa, there's big groups of militias, basically, that... I mean, because in Africa, you can't just put up a fence and be like, okay, these animals are safe. Like, a little sign that says no hunting isn't really going to keep anybody out, right? And so in Africa, they've got dogs and people and small armies that hunt down poachers to try and save these animals. So her and her husband got involved with one of those groups. And as time went on, her husband became more and more militant in his endeavors to try to save animals. Because, again, it's a little traumatizing, but poachers don't really kill the animals. They just kind of like maim them and leave them to bleed out. Right? So they're not using the meat. They're not feeding a village. They're just taking and maiming and ruining. And at some point during their time in Zambia, a poacher was killed. And after a couple years, the Zambian government is looking into Delia and her husband, and they're wanted for questioning in connection with that death. So nobody really thinks that they did it. None of their friends do. They don't think it's related. But basically, they were just kicked out of Zambia and fled back to the U.S. and can't really ever go back. Whether they did or did not do it is unknown, but I don't see a victim. No victim, no crime.
I did not know that Where the Crawdads Sing came out in 20.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that part yet either.
And Delia Owens, the author, she is a zoologist, conservation, and she was born in southern Georgia. She's 74 years old.
Oh, I didn't know that either, but I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I looked it up. I was like, how old is she? 74 years old.
Wow.
So crazy. No clue. Because I had only started hearing about where the Crawdads sing like a year ago. Half ago. 2023.
That makes sense because that's when the movie came out, was last year.
Well,
That always ramps up popularity.
yeah.
It was a quick. I mean, that's a quick turnaround. If it was published in 2018 and made into a movie in 22, that's showcases the sheer popularity.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I'm wondering if that backstory. I wonder if that backstory helped at all with a little bit of that popularity.
Oh, yeah. Great.
No such thing as bad press.
Yeah, no shit. So I want to talk about, I have a bunch of notes that I didn't end up putting in the show notes because I watched the movie this morning and just if I'm gonna be 100% honest.
Oh yeah.
So one thing about the movie that was hard for me is it was really hard to tell her age at certain areas in the movie.
Yes.
And her age kind of played a really important understanding in the timeline of the book.
Mhm.
And so it was just a little frustrating that I was like, I can't tell if she is 14 and Tate is 18 or whatever it is in the book versus whatever, 15. I can't, something along those lines. She's like,
and she looks 23.
she looks 23. And I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah. She did not look young. I mean, but not that young. So yeah, that's a good point, right? Like, in switching over from that written story where the age is clear and we're working with all those extra details of how her internal dialogue is changing and growing to, and again, I just feel like these movies replace so much of that internal dialogue with blank stares and dramatic music. And I think this is the movie it drives me the most nuts in.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, coming back to the Okay, so also another thing I want to bring up is the casting really quick. I think that I did not recognize any of these people, but I think the casting was superb.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't like was that Jumpin wasn't skinnier. And also, the wait,
Mm-hmm.
smile, the door. I was like, he is exactly like I wanted him to look. I'm so happy. And then Chase looked like the slime ball that he needed to look like with his greasy and weird hair.
Yes. I think another thing they did a good job of, is that fire tower. And I just love the symbolism of like that man-made structure that, much like all of the people in Kaya's life crumbled and just left her with nature, this man-made structure is also just crumbling.
I think that's really fascinating because my favorite line from the book was when she was brought up to the fire tower. I don't know if I think it was said in the book and the movie, but I can't remember. Definitely was in the movie, but she says, it's like having a friend your whole life and never seeing her face, seeing it for the first time. And I
When
was
she gets to look
like,
out over the swamp.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that just shows you how wonderful and deep her relationship. And then
Yes.
it was a little out of order from the book, but I think they did it in a very tactful way. It made sense how they did it in the movie versus the book, and I thought that was very well done because I know I've complained about the past about switching up things too much in timeline,
Yeah.
and this time it was good.
Yes, I agree that although some of the details were switched or this or that, we'll get to one of the more interesting details that was left out. But overall, it stayed fairly true to the book. And that with these types of stories, right? These types, it's kind of, it'd be really bizarre if it didn't stay true because there's no magic scenes, there's no large fight scenes, there's no budgetarily expensive scenes
Yeah.
in the book to skip over.
Yeah.
So it'd be really weird if it didn't match.
One thing that was really interesting to me that I think was portrayed really well in the movie too was her openness to Tate, but then with Chase, she like didn't want him to see her house, didn't want, like, her gut knew, like in the end, like or in the beginning, like her gut knew that.
Yeah.
And another thing that really that they did in the movie by changing some dialogue is that they made Chase seem more like a hurt boy and this super misunderstood guy in the movie than they did the book.
Yes. I think that just attributed to what a lying sack of shit he was. Like, that's the facade he was putting on.
Yeah.
Because then when his mom's talking about him on trial,
yeah,
and you're just like, ah, yes. He was a mama's boy and you're an enabler.
oh, shocker.
Shocker. Yeah.
I also really loved her clothes. That's really, those were,
Kaya's?
yes.
Actually, I didn't really notice them. I can't agree. I don't know. I didn't notice them.
So another thing that the hotel scene between Chase and Kaya, such trash. But I was very distracted by the fact that I think the actor who played Chase broke his collar.
Can't look away.
There was
Can't
a
look
bump
away
on
when you...
his shoulder on his collarbone. I was like, I think he broke his collarbone once. Which was good distraction during that scene because I was just angry the whole fucking time. So I was like, good, I'm happy you had pain. Like, like you fucker.
Right. Circling back to the beginning, I think this was in the book, and I don't think it was really touched on because I think it was part of the like prologue where they talked about the journals of sailors coming to this area and trying to maneuver the marsh, and how, like, even though these grown-ass men were comfortable at sea, but they were terrified to go within the marsh itself. And then, like, the juxtaposition of Kaya being so at ease and so skilled in getting through all of that on just like a little tiny boat. But I thought that juxtaposition was really strong to showcase just how, I've never really been in or around a marsh. So to really exaggerate the idea of just how twisted and how hard it is to find your way through, because they kind of compared it to roads, right? Like driving through a neighborhood.
Yeah.
But this one scene of like grown sailors won't go in there is proof that it's not like driving through a neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would never be able to navigate a seaway with like that. Like,
It all looks the same.
Yeah, I've been in like bayous in southern Louisiana, and I know there's probably some differences there, but no, thank you. Not a guy. And something.
Also, did you know that you're not supposed to touch the trees in a bayou?
I,
Because it might be a snake.
oh yeah.
So like when you're going by and it's like it looks all soft and you're like, I just want to run my hand through it. Never do that. Never touch a tree in a bayou.
Thanks for that. Thanks. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Luckily, again, a lesson I didn't learn firsthand.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad. Still with us. That's good. I think something that they did better in the movie was when Tate sticks up for Kaya when he runs into Chase and friends at the dock. Because there's this theme of the red cap in the book, and fibers found on the body, and they trace back to this red cap, and that red cap is actually Tate's cap. So for a whole lot of the book, I actually thought Tate might have done it. Might have done the murder, because I was like, it's his red cap, but then Kaya ends up with it, and I'm like, but how did the fibers end up on him? And they alluded to in the book, like, these fibers could have been on there for years, blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, but it was only just recently got it. I can't imagine she was wearing the cap, because they never allude to her, like, wearing the cap. And, but in the movie, Tate and Chase end up getting into, like, a shoving match, kind of fistfighty thing that Jumpin' has to break up at his dock. And in that, the hat gets pulled off and rubbed on his jacket. And I was like, there it is. That makes, I like that. My brain likes that.
Yeah.
I also really like how the actress who played Kaya was very animalistic when she got mad. She like hunched down and was like very aggressive. And I was like, yes, get him, girl. Fuck him up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she spent, 100% of her time just hanging out with animals, watching the behavior, watching, how they defend themselves.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that they didn't really do in the movie, was like, yeah, she watched animals, but they never really showed the interpersonal relationships. They're not interpersonal because they're between animals, but that of how animals actually approach each other and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, I think they did she did a great job of like, this is where she's learning how to interact with other living creatures, is by watching these animals reproduce, fight, motherly interactions. Like, most of us would learn those at home with a family, of how to get, well, maybe not the reproduction one, leave that one out, but everything else, right? Of how you're interacting with a family, of how you're handling controversy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really shown in the movie as much.
Yeah.
It was just animals moving, but not really interacting.
This is a small detail. I don't actually think it was that small, because we talk about symbolism in this book quite a bit. They never really show her feeding the gulls.
Mm-hmm. Which takes away from the idea that the gulls were pretty much family.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't really show a lot about the animals. Which I guess tries to make it more of a love story and less of an abandoned girl trying to deal with the trauma of being abandoned and finding that relationship. But
yeah.
Which makes sense based on the author's background, but also makes sense by excluding it, because most people don't give a shit about animals.
Yeah.
And watching them interact and watching them or learning from them in any capacity.
So the other thing that was like delayed in the movie was the renovations on her cabin.
Mhm.
And I really liked that in the movie, they chose to have all those workers be color.
Mhm.
Because she was basically raised by Jumpin and his wife, who were black. And this is taking place during still segregation, still where a younger man would call an older black man boy. And, you know, I missed the fact that they didn't have her ever venture out to the community where all of the people of color lived. That was kind of a
Oh, yeah.
bummer because that was in the book where she actually went to Mabel and John's house because their whole community helped in a way to raise her from like donations to the church and everything. And that's how she got her clothes and stuff. And so that community was so vital to her upbringing. Kind of a bummer that we
Yes.
only saw two people representing that community. It was not just, they were definitely parental figures to her.
And how that community was there to help and assist her and never harm her. They didn't mock her. They didn't give her a silly name. They didn't obviously do all the things that Chase Andrews did, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think the hawk symbolizes her mother?
The hawk in the movie or the book?
In both, because we find out that like her mom dies like 2 years or so prior, and like I was trying to remember if that hawk kind of like showed up around the same time.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it. I guess it could be, like an elusive animal, elusive. That's just kind of like watching, but never actually helping,
Yeah,
never actually nurturing.
but she always feels nurtured by it. Like she's always sees it at a time where she needs like peace.
Hmm.
That's why I was curious about it.
It could be. It would be, I just think she has such a connection with the swamp and the swamp with her and all the animals within it that I just don't. I guess I don't really like the idea of that being her mom so much. Just because.
So just a quick Google here.
Mhm.
Symbolism of a hawk.
It's her mom.
So hawks are widely regarded as impeccable hunters and symbols of freedom worldwide. The Native Americans typically view the hawk as a symbol of strength and protection. Dreaming of hawks, they may be considered a sign of ill omen. They often appear to protect people from enemies.
So do you think it's her mom or do you think it's her inner strength when she needs it the most?
That's a great question.
And her strength being not personified because it's an animal, but
Yes. It's a good
I
word.
can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. So
Or-
let's talk about the big thing that's missing. Because that's my next note, and you have the same note.
Okay.
The poetry.
Mhm.
The lack of it in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And how that basically wildly changes the ending.
Yes. Yeah. So in the book, there's a poet, Amanda Hamilton, and at the end, we find out that Kaya is Amanda Hamilton and has written all these poems, and which brings us to the fact, and this is why I was like, why are the renovations in the movie happening this late? Like, and they don't show as much of the renovations, which actually play a vital role in how Kaya hides evidence.
Right.
And I'm severely severely disappointed that instead of finding this box of these poems that identify her as Amanda Hamilton and the shell necklace, he pulls out a book that is one of her journals, and there's pages cut away, and it talks about the fireflies and the praying mantis that are in the poems that are not in the movie, and then has a picture of Chase, and then you flip the page over, and again, there's the necklace, and I'm just like, that is so trash compared to the ending of the book and how he finds it at the end of the book. And I was devastated that they changed that. Because in the book, they take her diaries and use it as evidence in court. This one they did not, and they used it to find the clarification after she's passed away, and he's sending stuff to a museum of her works of this book and this necklace. And I was like, damn it, because the whole movie, I'm like, none of the voiceover of her is her poems. None of it is like alluding to Amanda Hamilton and poetry. And they glaze over her introduction to poetry that Tate gives her when she first starts reading. It's one singular 25-second scene, and it has one of the best, one of the cutest scenes in the book and the movie is where she reads her first sentence, and it's part of this poem, and she's like, I didn't know words could hold so much. Like, she's just blown
Right.
away. And then it just fades to black, and I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah.
So that was really disappointing.
I think this is just an ode to, this could possibly be the best way to summarize how Hollywood ruins books, is because they don't view the written word as special in any capacity. So I'd be interested to see why they took out the poet side of it, but they just don't value the written word over images, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words. Yes, but words are also worth words.
Indeed they are.
And so they value those images, and instead of having somebody read those words or having him find them and then have to like pause on the screen to read those words, like they don't want to encourage people to read. Like if people went out and were like, wow, poetry is interesting, and then went out and started reading poetry, that's all that less time that they're going to be watching movies and TV shows. And I think it's just, a great example of that push to not read, period.
Yeah.
They don't want to encourage people to write. They don't want to encourage them to read. And this is a great way of oversimplifying it for your audience so that they don't have to read and connect the dots and think.
Yes.
It's just in your face, and there's no questions left.
I think loneliness is trash because there's a scene in the movie that like alludes to loneliness. And that's why she says basically, I don't know how I feel about Chase Andrews, but the loneliness is gone. And I'm like, yeah, been there. Also had a bad go with that choice. So that sucks. Did not murder anyone. Verification there. Did destroy my soul for a little while. But loneliness is trash. And if Tate would have just not been a fucker, none of this would have happened. And that's my conclusion to the whole fucking thing.
That's my conclusion.
If Tate wasn't such a handsome fucker and fucked off for 5-7 years or whatever, none of this would have happened. So it's Tate's fault. He should be ashamed of himself. I think he is, but yeah.
So does that make Tate the villain?
Essentially, like, as we spoke about earlier in our desire to like the villain, here I am again liking the villain.
Oh man. So overall rating of the book?
I know what type of scale?
Surprise me.
Ah, shit. So I'm gonna go.
I guess just the generic 5-star scale, right?
5-star scale.
Let's do it out of 100.
Fuck you. 5-star scale. I would give the book a solid 4.3.
4.3.
Yeah, it
On a
gets
sliding
slow.
scale from 1 to 86, I would give it.
The stars, you're confusing me. I'm like, damn it, I'm confused.
Fine, we'll do it your way. On a 5-star, I guess it's everybody's way. This is the generic rating of a book.
This is widely accepted. I don't know why we're trying to make something new.
Because 86 is fun and confusing. Oh, that's what we should rate the romance books out of from now on.
Yep.
Out of 69 stars.
Done. We can do that.
6.9 stars? 6.9 stars will fit onto the
Yes.
Instagram post better.
We can do that.
Where was I? Out of 5 stars, I would give the book a solid 4.
Yeah.
4 stars. I really enjoyed the book. When it came to the movie, the first time around, I didn't finish it. And this time I made myself finish it for work. And I've decided that it's just not the type of movie I'd ever watch. And the only reason I watched it is because I read the book. And when it comes to movies, I don't watch serious movies. Life is serious enough. I would never watch a serious movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I'm going to go a 1 to 10 on the movie scale just because that's how I normally rate movies. So I'm just trying to stay true to the media that I'm rating, right? I'd probably give this a 7.5, the movie. But I agree with you that I realized right when I sat down to read it to watch it that I did not want to watch it because I knew how it ended. I like movies that I don't know how it technically is going to end because I like to guess and like put things together as it goes. Which is what I do when I read.
Do you watch a lot of Guy Ritchie?
No.
You'll enjoy Guy. Oh. I have one singular movie recommendation for you.
What is it?
The Rock and Rolla.
Oh, you're gonna have to text me that because I'm not gonna remember. But I also am more akin to comedy and action movies.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. I'm not a big drama person, but like I need like action and mystery and comedy rom-coms. I'm a rom.
I don't watch rom-coms. Oh, I do love horror movies. I do watch a lot of horror movies. I
wish I did, but I can't.
8 Insidiouses and Annabelle. And my parents were like, you watch them when you live by yourself? You wait until you live by yourself to watch those? And I was like, yeah, so much fun. And then you live in an apartment and the upstairs creaks.
Oh my gosh.
But spoiler alert, when you watch that many scary movies back to back, they're not scary anymore.
So,
is that why I'm into horror lit? That makes more sense.
So next week's episode is going to be bad reviews of books we love.
Ooh.
So now
This always hurts my feelings.
I know, me too. I'm excited for it though because I'm gonna find some good juicy ones. But that's all I had for today's episode. Is there anything else that you've got, Kristen?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to stop spoiling books when I open my mouth.
Good. So
it's not gonna work.
All right. So we're going to sign off because on trend and right on time, I have to pee. So thank you so much for joining us for this week's show. We hope you enjoyed it. If you read or watched Where the Crawdads Sing, please comment on whatever one of our social medias and tell us what your thoughts were about the book and movie and how you felt about it. We will see you next week. And if you're so inclined, leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. Any feedback we can get to improve, we're happy to take it into consideration.
And share us with your friends.
Oh, definitely share us with your friends. We like friends.
We
like roommates.
Enemy, or like an enemy that you want to be a lover, like an enemies to lover trope. Let us be the bridge.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll be roommates. So we'll see you next week.
Toodles.